The neon lights of Neo-Arcadia flickered against the perpetual night sky, casting an electric blue glow over the towering skyscrapers that dominated the skyline. In the 22nd century, this megalopolis had become the global center for neural technology, where human memories were digitized, commodified, and traded like stocks in a market that never slept. Lyra Tran stood on the balcony of her modest mid-layer apartment, watching the memory fireflies, tiny drones carrying memory packets, float between buildings like digital dandelion seeds. As she traced their paths with her eyes, she couldn't help but feel the weight of her profession. She was a memory harvester, one of the elite few trained to extract and process the most valuable commodity of the age: human experiences. Another day, another harvest, she muttered to herself, slipping the virtual resonator mask over her face. The device hummed to life, its neural interface connecting to her cerebral implant with a familiar tingle. The mask would allow her to process and categorize memories with clinical precision, separating the worthwhile experiences from the mundane. Today's assignment had come directly from the top. Not just any harvest, but one from a dying genius, Dr. Elias Merrick, the brilliant neuroscientist whose work had pioneered the very technology Lyra now used. Merrick was dying from a rare neural degenerative condition, and Neuronova, the corporation that employed Lyra, wanted his memories before they deteriorated beyond recovery. Lyra moved through the crowded streets of Layer 3, the commercial district where middle-class citizens went about their daily lives, some sporting visible neural enhancements, while others made do with outdated implants. The class divide in Neo-Arcadia was stark. The higher you lived in the city's layers, the more premium memories you could afford to purchase and integrate. The Neuronova headquarters dominated Layer 1, the Sky Layer, a gleaming monolith of glass and circuitry that pulsed with blue light. Security drones scanned Lyra's credentials as she entered, their retinal sensors confirming her identity before granting access to the high-security medical wing. "Harvester Tran, we've been expecting you." A receptionist with unnaturally perfect features greeted her. "Dr. Viet is waiting in Extraction Room 7. Dr. Aurora Viet, Neuronova's Research and Development Director, was notorious for her cold demeanor and ruthless pursuit of neural advancement. When Lyra entered the sterile white room, Viet barely acknowledged her presence, focused instead on the frail figure lying on the medical bed. "Harvester Tran, this is Dr. Elias Merrick," Viet said without looking up from her holographic displays. "His neural pathways are degrading rapidly. We need a complete extraction within the hour." Lyra approached the bed. Merrick looked smaller than his reputation suggested, a thin man with sunken cheeks and eyes that still held a spark of intelligence despite his condition. Multiple neural interfaces were connected to his scalp, monitoring the failing synaptic activity in his brain. "Dr. Merrick," Lyra said softly, "I'm here to preserve your memories. The procedure will be painless." The old scientist's eyes locked onto hers with surprising intensity. "Young woman," he whispered, his voice raspy, "be careful what you take from me. Not all knowledge is meant to be shared." Before Lyra could respond, Viet interrupted. "We don't have time for philosophical debates. Commence the extraction, Harvester." Lyra positioned her equipment and initiated the harvesting protocol. Her virtual resonator mask displayed Merrick's neural architecture, a complex tapestry of memories, knowledge, and experiences accumulated over a lifetime of scientific discovery. As she began the extraction, Lyra navigated through the scientist's mind with practiced precision, siphoning memories into secure neural containers. Hours passed as she worked, carefully preserving decades of research, personal relationships, and scientific breakthroughs. But as she delved deeper into Merrick's neural pathways, something unusual caught her attention: a hidden memory cluster, protected by encryption protocols far more sophisticated than standard privacy barriers. "Dr. Viet," Lyra called out. There's an anomalous data structure here. It appears to be intentionally isolated from the main memory centers. Viet approached. Her interest piqued. Extract it separately. We'll analyze it later. As Lyra began to extract the encrypted memories, her interface detected a strange code embedded within. Not just memory data, but something algorithmic in nature. When she touched the code with her neural tools, Merrick's body suddenly tensed, and his vital signs spiked. "What are you doing?" Viet demanded. "Nothing unusual," Lyra replied. But something in the code had resonated with her own neural implant, sending a brief but distinct message directly to her consciousness. Next control. They must not have it. Merrick's eyes flew open, staring directly at Lyra. "Remember," he gasped, "memories are not just data. They are who we are." Then his vitals flatlined. Dr. Merrick was gone, but the mysterious code fragment had been partially extracted, and Lyra felt its presence in her harvesting equipment like a weight. Something about it felt dangerous, like holding a digital weapon with the safety off. "Finish the extraction," Viet ordered, seemingly unperturbed by Merrick's passing. "I want every neuron's worth of data, especially that encrypted section." Lyra completed the procedure mechanically, but secretly copied a fragment of the encrypted code to her personal neural storage. A highly illegal act that could cost her not just her job, but potentially her freedom. Something about Merrick's warning and the code's structure compelled her to investigate further. After delivering the official memory archive to Neuronova's secure servers, Lyra hurried through the rain-slicked streets of Mid-Layer, headed for the only person she knew who might be able to decrypt the mysterious code, Thane Node Kwong, a black market hacker who specialized in cracking Neuronova's proprietary formats. Thane operated out of a cluttered shop in Layer 3, officially selling vintage electronics, while covertly providing illegal neural services to those who could pay. The bell over the door jingled as Lyra entered, finding Thane hunched over a disassembled neural interface, his fingers dancing over its circuitry with practiced ease. "The famous memory harvester graces my humble establishment," Thane said without looking up, his voice carrying a hint of sarcasm. "What brings Neuronova's finest to my door?" "I need your help, Thane. Off the record." This caught his attention. Thane looked up, pushing his augmented reality glasses onto his forehead. Those words usually precede either something highly profitable or dangerously illegal. Sometimes both. Lyra glanced around the shop, ensuring they were alone before producing a small neural transfer device. "I need you to analyze this code fragment. It's sensitive." Thane took the device, his expression growing serious as he plugged it into his custom-built decoder. "Where did you get this?" "No, don't tell me." "I don't want to know." His fingers flew across holographic keyboards as he began breaking through the encryption layers. "This is military-grade stuff. Lyra, not your standard Neuronova fare." Thane whistled low. "Give me a few hours." Lyra nodded and left, wandering the neon-lit streets of Neo-Arcadia, her mind troubled. The city pulsed around her, advertisements for memory enhancements projecting directly into citizens' neural interfaces. Street vendors selling cheap synthetic experiences for those who couldn't afford authentic memories. The Harvest Fest advertisements were everywhere, counting down to the grand auction where the rarest and most valuable memories would be sold to the highest bidders. This year's event was touted as the biggest yet, with Neuronova promising revolutionary new memory technology that would transform the human experience. As night deepened, Lyra returned to Thane's shop. She found him pale-faced, his usual cocky demeanor replaced by genuine concern. "Lyra, what have you brought me?" he asked. His voice hushed. "This isn't just memory code. It's—" He struggled to find the words. "It's a form of neural override. When embedded in transferred memories, it creates a backdoor into the recipient's decision-making processes." "What do you mean?" I mean, whoever controls this code could potentially influence or even control the will of anyone who receives memories containing it. And based on these implementation protocols, it's designed for mass distribution. Thane looked up at her, his expression grave. Where did you get this? Dr. Elias Merrick, Lyra admitted. He died today. This was hidden in his memories. Merrick, the neural interface pioneer? Thane shook his head in disbelief. Why would he create something like this? I don't think he created it willingly, Lyra said, remembering Merrick's warning. But I need to know more about it. Can you help me dig deeper? Thane hesitated, then nodded. I'll need to access Neuronova's restricted archives. Not easy, but possible. It'll cost you. Whatever it takes. Over the next few days, Lyra continued her regular harvesting duties, careful not to arouse suspicion, while Thane worked on cracking Neuronova's security. Her assignments took her across Neo-Arcadia's social strata, from wealthy elites in Skylayer, wanting to preserve their experiences for posterity, to desperate ground layer residents, selling treasured memories to afford neural enhancements or simply to survive. Each harvest weighed increasingly on her conscience. A young mother selling memories of her child's first steps to pay for anti-rejection medication for her neural implants. An elderly man parting with decades of love for his late wife to afford a place in a care facility. These were not just data transactions. They were pieces of humanity being commodified. 4 days after Merrick's death, Thane contacted Lyra through a secure neural channel. I found something. Come quickly. When Lyra arrived at his shop, Thane locked the door behind her and activated a neural dampening field to prevent surveillance. Elias Merrick was being coerced, Thane said without preamble, projecting a series of classified documents onto the wall. Neuronova had him working on Project Next Control for years. They forced him to test early versions on prisoners and non-consenting test subjects. The documents detailed horrific experiments, subjects whose wills were overridden, made to perform actions against their moral codes. Some driven to madness or suicide when the neural conflicts became too severe. Merrick tried to sabotage the project. Thane continued, scrolling through more files. He introduced fatal flaws in the code, reported false results, but Viet caught on. They threatened him, monitored him constantly. That's why he hid the true code in his own memories. It was the only place they couldn't access until he was dead or incapacitated. Lyra felt sick. What's Neuronova planning to do with this technology? Based on internal communications I intercepted, they're planning to unveil Next Control at Harvest Fest, marketing it as a revolutionary memory enhancement platform. In reality, it's a mass control system. They'll distribute it through their entire memory network, affecting millions of people who use Neuronova products. We have to stop them, Lyra said firmly. You're talking about going against the most powerful corporation in Neo-Arcadia, Thane warned. They have private security forces, government connections, and control over most of the city's neural infrastructure. I know, but I've been part of this system too long, harvesting people's most precious possessions while ignoring what it's doing to society. Lyra's voice hardened with resolve. I won't be complicit in this. Thane studied her for a moment, then sighed. There's a resistance group. They call themselves Memory Freedom. They've been fighting against Neuronova's monopoly for years. I can connect you, but after that, you're on your own. The next day, Lyra was summoned to Aurora Viet's office in the highest levels of Neuronova Tower. The expansive room offered a panoramic view of Neo-Arcadia, the lower layers shrouded in perpetual smog, while the sky layer basked in artificial sunlight. Harvester Tran, Viet greeted her coolly, not looking up from the neural interface embedded in her desk. I wanted to personally commend you on your work with Dr. Merrick's extraction. Truly exemplary. Thank you, Dr. Viet, Lyra replied, keeping her expression neutral despite her racing heart. His memories have proven invaluable to our research. Viet finally looked up, her gaze calculating. However, our analysis shows a discrepancy in the data transfer. A small fragment appears to be missing from the encrypted section. Lyra felt a chill run down her spine but maintained her composure. The encryption was unusually complex. Some data corruption may have occurred during the extraction process, especially given Dr. Merrick's deteriorating neural state. Viet's eyes narrowed slightly. Perhaps our technical team is investigating. She rose from her desk, moving to stand by the floor-to-ceiling window. You've been with us for 5 years now. Harvester Tran, your record is impeccable. I'd hate to see that change due to misplaced curiosity. The threat was thinly veiled. I understand my role, Dr. Viet. I extract memories. I don't interpret them. See that you remember that distinction. Viet turned back to face her. Harvest Fest is only 10 days away. We'll need our best harvesters present for the unveiling of our new platform. It will revolutionize how we interact with memories. I look forward to it, Lyra lied. You're dismissed. As Lyra left the Neuronova Tower, she noticed a security drone following her at a discreet distance. They were watching her now. She would have to be extremely careful. That evening, following Thane's encrypted instructions, Lyra made her way to ground layer, the lowest and poorest section of Neo-Arcadia. Here, the city's gleaming facade gave way to crumbling infrastructure and desperation. Neural waste, the discarded remnants of memory extractions and failed implants, littered the streets, some still glowing with residual data. In an abandoned memory clinic, repurposed as a community shelter, Lyra met Annika del Rosario, the leader of the Memory Freedom Movement. Annika had once been a neural psychiatric nurse, treating those whose minds had been damaged by memory commerce, before dedicating herself to fighting the system. So you're the harvester who wants to help, Annika said, studying Lyra with skepticism. Why should we trust someone who makes their living stealing people's memories? Because I've seen what Neuronova is planning, and I can't be part of it anymore, Lyra replied honestly. And because I have this. She produced the neural storage device containing the next control code fragment. Annika's expression changed as Thane, who was already present, explained what they had discovered. The resistance leader called in several other members, including a former Neuronova programmer and a neural rights advocate. If what you're saying is true, Annika said after they had analyzed the code, Neuronova could control anyone who receives memories through their network. That's over 70% of Neo-Arcadia's population. We need to expose them before Harvest Fest, Lyra insisted. One of the resistance members, a man named Jackson Mireles, with a sharp face and watchful eyes, spoke up. And how exactly do you propose we do that? Neuronova controls most media outlets, and their security is impenetrable. Not impenetrable, Thane interjected. Just very, very difficult to breach. But with the right team and the right plan, even if we could expose them, would people believe us? Jackson challenged. Most citizens are addicted to memory commerce. They won't give it up based on conspiracy theories. Then we don't just expose them, we disrupt the system, Lyra said firmly. We use Merrick's code against them. He built in vulnerabilities, backdoors. With enough preparation, we could sabotage Next Control at the moment of its unveiling. The group debated late into the night, eventually forming the outline of a plan. They would need to infiltrate the Harvest Fest event, access the central servers controlling the memory distribution network, and replace the Next Control code with a neutralizing agent Thane would develop based on Merrick's hidden countermeasures. As the meeting broke up, Annika pulled Lyra aside. I'm still not entirely sure about you, Harvester. You've been part of the problem for a long time. I know, Lyra admitted. I've harvested memories from people who couldn't afford to lose them. I told myself I was just doing my job. that I wasn't responsible for the system. But I was wrong. What changed? Lyra hesitated, then decided to share the truth. When I was a child, my mother died in an accident. My father was devastated, but he kept going for my sake. Then he developed a rare neural condition, similar to what killed Merrick. Actually, the only treatment was prohibitively expensive. She took a deep breath before continuing. I was 14. A Neuronova representative approached us, offering to cover the treatment costs in exchange for my mother's memories, all my father had left of her. He refused, but I made the decision for him. I contacted Neuronova secretly and sold them my mother's memories to save my father's life. Annika's expression softened slightly. That's not on you. That's on a system that forces impossible choices. Maybe. But I've been part of that system ever since, imposing those same impossible choices on others. Lyra's voice hardened. I won't do it anymore. Whatever it takes. I'm going to help bring Neuronova down. Over the next week, the resistance group prepared for their infiltration of Harvest Fest. Thane worked tirelessly on a countermeasure for next control, while Annika trained Lyra and others in avoiding neural surveillance. Jackson, who claimed to have contacts within Neuronova's security apparatus, provided valuable intelligence on the festival's layout and security protocols. Meanwhile, Lyra continued her harvesting duties, now acutely aware of the Neuronova security operatives monitoring her movements. She performed her job with mechanical precision, giving them no reason for suspicion, while secretly gathering information about the Harvest Fest venue. 3 days before the event, Lyra was harvesting memories from an elderly scholar in mid-layer when her neural implant buzzed with an urgent encrypted message from Thane. Compromised. Memory sensors coming. Run. Memory sensors. Neuronova's elite security force specialized in eliminating threats to the corporation's neural dominance. They didn't just kill their targets. They erased them from existence, harvesting and then destroying every memory, leaving no trace. Lyra barely had time to disconnect from her client and apologize before she was racing through the apartment building's service corridors. Through the window, she spotted 2 black unmarked vehicles pulling up outside. Her home would be watched, her usual haunts monitored. She needed to disappear. For the next 48 hours, Lyra moved through the shadowy underworld of Neo Arcadia's ground layer, using old harvester tricks to mask her neural signature. She slept in abandoned buildings, paid for food with anonymous credit chips, and kept moving. Finally, she managed to make contact with Annika through a secure public terminal. Thane's been taken. Annika's voice crackled through the encrypted channel. Neuronova's memory sensors raided his shop yesterday. We don't know if he's alive. What about the countermeasure? Lyra asked urgently. Incomplete. But he sent what he had to our secure server before they got him. We're working on finishing it. But without Thane. Annika didn't need to finish the thought. None of them had Thane's expertise. We need to adjust our plan, Lyra said. Harvest Fest is tomorrow night. We may not be able to deploy a perfect countermeasure, but we can still expose Next Control for what it is. Jackson says security will be tripled now that they're onto us. It may be impossible to get inside. Not for me, Lyra replied. I'm still officially a Neuronova harvester. My credentials should still work. I'll go in alone. That's suicide, Annika protested. Maybe, but I have to try. Lyra paused, then added, if I don't make it, make sure people know the truth about what Neuronova was planning. The night of Harvest Fest arrived, and Neo Arcadia's elite gathered in the Grand Neural Nexus Hall in Skylayer. The massive dome-shaped structure pulsed with holographic displays, showcasing the memories to be auctioned. Rare experiences from astronauts who had touched distant planets, the emotional symphonies of master composers, the sensory records of historical events witnessed firsthand. Lyra approached the entrance in her official harvester uniform, heart pounding, but expression serene. Her credentials were scanned, and for a terrifying moment, she thought she would be immediately arrested. But the security system beeped its approval, and she was ushered inside. The hall was packed with Neo Arcadia's wealthiest citizens, their neural enhancements glittering with precious metals and rare materials. Memory brokers moved through the crowd, negotiating private sales away from the main auction. On an elevated stage, preparations were underway for Neuronova's grand announcement. Lyra spotted Aurora Viet, speaking with government officials near the stage, gesturing animatedly as she presumably extolled the virtues of their new technology. Several memory sensors stood nearby, their black uniforms and featureless helmets designed to intimidate. Moving carefully through the crowd, Lyra made her way toward the server room, located behind the main stage. According to the plans Jackson had provided, this was where the central neural broadcast system was housed, the perfect place to disrupt the next control unveiling. As she neared the restricted area, a hand gripped her arm. She turned to find Jackson standing there, dressed in the uniform of event security. "What are you doing here?" she hissed. "You'll blow my cover." "Changing the plan," he replied quietly. "Memory sensors are everywhere. You'll never get to the server room alone." "I have to try." "I can help you," Jackson insisted. "I have access codes." Lyra hesitated, unsure whether to trust him. Something about his sudden appearance felt wrong, but she had few options. "Fine, lead the way." Jackson guided her through a service door and down a utility corridor. The sounds of the gala faded behind them as they descended deeper into the building's infrastructure. Finally, they reached a heavy security door marked Neural Broadcast Control. "This is it," Jackson said, punching a code into the access panel. The door slid open, revealing a room filled with humming servers and neural interface equipment. As Lyra stepped forward, Jackson suddenly struck her from behind, sending her sprawling to the floor. Before she could react, he had a neural suppressor pressed against her neck. "I'm sorry it had to be this way," he said, his voice no longer friendly. "But Neuronova pays better than your little resistance ever could." "You're the one who betrayed Thane," Lyra realized, her mind racing despite the neural suppressor's effects. "And now I'm delivering you," Jackson confirmed. "Dr. Viet will be pleased." As if summoned by her name, Aurora Viet entered the server room, flanked by 2 memory sensors. She looked down at Lyra with cold satisfaction. "Harvester Tran, how disappointing to find you engaged in corporate espionage." Viet shook her head in mock sadness. "After such a promising career." "This isn't about corporate secrets," Lyra spat, fighting through the suppressor's effects. "You're planning to control people's minds, to override their free will." "We're planning to guide humanity's neural evolution," Viet corrected. "People are lost. Lyra, they make poor decisions. They suffer. They cause others to suffer. Next control will simply optimize their choices." "You mean control them?" "Direct them toward happiness, toward productivity, toward a better society." Viet gestured to the servers around them. "In 30 minutes, we unveil Next Control to our most influential clients. Within a week, it will be integrated into Neuronova's entire memory network. Billions of memories carrying our optimization algorithms, influencing neural patterns worldwide." "You're insane," Lyra whispered. "No, I'm pragmatic." Dr. Merrick was the idealist, believing people should make their own choices, even when those choices are destructive. Viet knelt beside Lyra. "I had such hopes for you. Your harvesting skills are exceptional. You could have been part of the New Order." "I'd rather die." "That can be arranged. But first, I want to know who else is involved in this pathetic resistance effort." Before Lyra could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the building. Viet straightened, her expression darkening. "What's happening?" she demanded. One of the memory sensors received a neural alert. "Security breach in the main hall," Multiple intruders. Viet turned to Jackson. Stay with her. Don't let her near the servers. To the sensors, she ordered. Come with me. We need to secure the presentation area. As they hurried from the room, Lyra realized what had happened. Annika had launched a diversion. The resistance was creating chaos in the main hall to draw security away from the server room. It was her chance. Perhaps her only one. Jackson stood over her. Neural disruptor pointed at her head. Don't even think about it. You know what Next Control will do, Lyra said, trying to reach whatever conscience he might have. It won't just affect the elites or the poor. It will affect everyone, including you. I've been guaranteed immunity, Jackson replied, though uncertainty flickered across his face. And you believe them? The corporation that's about to implement mass mind control. Jackson's grip on the disruptor tightened. Shut up. You don't understand how the world works. Sometimes you have to choose the winning side. I understand betrayal, Lyra said quietly. I've lived with it my whole life. Something in her words seemed to reach him, creating just enough hesitation for Lyra to act. She kicked upward, striking his wrist and sending the neural disruptor flying. Jackson lunged for her, but Lyra, despite the lingering effects of the suppressor, managed to evade him and scramble toward the main server console. Jackson tackled her before she could reach it, and they grappled on the floor, each fighting for control. He was stronger, but Lyra was fighting for more than just her life. With a desperate surge of energy, she broke free of his grip and slammed her elbow into his temple, temporarily stunning him. Staggering to her feet, Lyra reached the central server interface and connected her neural implant. The system recognized her harvester credentials, granting her access to the broadcast protocols. She quickly located the Next Control implementation package, an innocuous-looking file that would spread like a virus through the memory network. She began uploading the partial countermeasure Thane had developed, but it was incomplete. Without the full code, it might not be enough to neutralize Next Control. Lyra had to make a choice, and quickly, as Jackson was already recovering. In a moment of clarity, she realized there was another option. Rather than trying to neutralize Next Control, she could expose it. She began copying the core Next Control code and its documentation to the public neural networks, along with Merrick's warnings and the evidence of forced experimentation. Jackson lunged at her again, but this time, Lyra was ready. She sidestepped his attack and slammed him into the server rack, the impact knocking him unconscious. The upload was at 70% when the door to the server room burst open, revealing Annika, bloodied but determined, alongside several resistance fighters. "Lyra, we need to go now!" Annika shouted over the blaring alarms. "Not yet," Lyra gestured to the console. "Almost done." Annika posted fighters at the door, while Lyra completed the upload. As the progress bar reached 100%, a new alarm sounded, more urgent, more panicked. "What did you do?" Annika asked, eyes wide. "I gave everyone the truth," Lyra replied. "Next Control, the experiments, everything, it's all being broadcast across every neural channel in Neo-Arcadia. No one can stop it now." The building shook as security systems initiated lockdown protocols. They had minutes, maybe seconds, before memory sensors would swarm the area. "We need to go," Annika insisted, pulling Lyra toward the exit. As they fled through emergency corridors, Lyra could already feel the impact of her broadcast. Neural notifications were flooding in from across the city as people received and shared the Next Control files, their outrage building into a virtual storm that was rapidly becoming a physical one. They emerged onto a maintenance platform overlooking the main hall, now in chaos. The elegant Harvest Fest had devolved into panic as neural feeds displayed the truth about Next Control. Aurora Viet stood on the stage, desperately trying to regain control of the situation as her prized technology was exposed to the world. "We need to get to ground layer," Annika said. "We have safe houses there." They were making their way toward a service elevator, when memory sensors cut off their escape route. The black-clad operatives raised their neural disruptors, ready to fire. "Surrender your neural interfaces and come quietly," their leader ordered. "Never," Annika replied, stepping protectively in front of Lyra. "The truth is already out. You've lost." The lead sensor fired, the neural disruptor beam striking Annika squarely in the chest. She collapsed, her neural systems overloaded. Lyra caught her before she hit the floor, rage replacing fear. "You'll pay for this!" Lyra snarled at the sensors, cradling Annika's unconscious form. Before the sensors could fire again, the building structure groaned ominously. The neural backlash from millions of citizens, all simultaneously rejecting Next control, was overwhelming Neuronova's systems. Power surged and failed, plunging sections of the building into darkness. In the confusion, the remaining resistance fighters engaged the sensors, buying Lyra enough time to drag Annika to the service elevator. As the doors closed, she caught a glimpse of Aurora Viet being swarmed by her own clients, their expressions contorted with rage at the betrayal. The elevator descended through Neo Arcadia's layers, each level revealing increasing chaos as the news spread. By the time they reached ground layer, riots had broken out. Neuronova security forces were overwhelmed as citizens stormed their facilities, demanding justice. Resistance members met them at the elevator, helping carry Annika to a hidden medical facility. The neural disruptor had caused severe damage, but she was alive. As medics worked to stabilize her, Lyra collapsed into a chair, the adrenaline finally wearing off. "Did we succeed?" a resistance fighter asked her. "I think so," Lyra replied, watching neural feeds showing protests erupting across all layers of Neo Arcadia. Next control has been exposed. People know the truth now. "And Jackson, the traitor?" "Last I saw, he was unconscious in the server room. The memory sensors will probably find him." Lyra felt no satisfaction in this, only a hollow acknowledgement that justice would be served. For days, Neo Arcadia remained in upheaval. Neuronova's stock collapsed as governments worldwide launched investigations into the corporation's memory manipulation programs. Aurora Viet was arrested while attempting to flee the city, along with several other executives implicated in the Next control conspiracy. Thane was found alive in a Neuronova detention facility. His memories partially harvested, but his mind intact. He joined Lyra at Annika's bedside as she slowly recovered from the neural assault. "What happens now?" Thane asked, as they watched over their injured leader. "The memory market will continue," Lyra replied realistically. "It's too ingrained in society to disappear overnight, but maybe it can become something better, more ethical, more equal." "And what about you? Still planning to be a harvester?" Lyra shook her head. "No. I think I've taken enough memories from people." She paused, then added, "But maybe I can help return some of what's been taken. There are ways to reconstruct lost memories, to help those who've sold too much of themselves." A week after Harvest Fest, Lyra stood before a citizen tribunal established to investigate Neuronova's crimes. As one of the key whistleblowers, her testimony was crucial in understanding the full scope of the corporation's plans. Memory harvesting began as a way to preserve experiences, to share knowledge across humanity, she explained to the assembled judges. But it became corrupted, a tool for the wealthy to consume the experiences of others, and ultimately, a weapon to control minds. "And your role in this system?" one judge asked. "I was complicit," Lyra admitted. "I harvested memories without questioning who would benefit and who would suffer. I was part of the problem, but I hope my actions have helped begin to make amends." The tribunal ultimately granted Lyra immunity in exchange for her continued cooperation in dismantling Neuronova's more nefarious operations. Aurora Viet and her co-conspirators faced neural incarceration, a fitting punishment that would prevent them from ever again manipulating memories. In the months that followed, Neo-Arcadia began to heal. The memory economy was restructured under new regulations, ensuring ethical harvesting and fair compensation. The extreme stratification of society slowly began to ease as access to memories became more democratized. Annika recovered and continued leading the memory freedom movement, now working within the system to advocate for neural rights. Thane used his skills to help develop secure, manipulation-free memory storage systems. And Jackson, after a public trial, was sentenced to community service in ground layer, helping those whose memories had been exploited by Neuronova. As for Lyra, she established a clinic in mid-layer, focused on memory restoration, helping people recover what they had been forced to sell. It was difficult, painstaking work, but every time she helped someone reconnect with a lost experience, she felt a small measure of redemption. One evening, a year after the fall of Neuronova, Lyra stood on her apartment balcony, watching the sunset over Neo-Arcadia. The city still glowed with neon, but something had changed. The memory fireflies now carried different cargo, shared experiences freely given rather than commercially harvested, knowledge exchanged for the common good rather than profit. She removed her virtual resonator mask, kept as a reminder of her past, and let it rest on the balcony railing. The neural interface no longer felt like a necessary extension of herself. She was learning to experience the world directly again, to form memories without thinking of their market value. In the distance, a memorial to Elias Merrick glowed softly. The scientist had become a symbol of resistance against neural exploitation. His final act of defiance, ultimately bringing down the system he had helped create. Lyra wondered what memories he would have chosen to preserve, had he been given the choice. "Memories aren't just data," she murmured, echoing Merrick's final words. "They're who we are." The neural implant at the base of her skull hummed softly as it recorded this moment, not for sale or trade, but simply as part of the continuous, precious stream of experiences that made her human. In a world that had tried to commodify consciousness itself, that simple act of remembering for one's own sake had become the most radical act of all. As night fell over Neo-Arcadia, Lyra closed her eyes and committed to memory the feeling of the cool breeze, the distant sounds of the city, and the knowledge that even in a world where memories could be bought and sold, some experiences remained priceless, belonging only to those who lived them, treasured them, and chose to keep them close to their hearts. The last memory firefly of the evening drifted past her balcony, its glow gradually fading as it carried its precious cargo into the depths of the city. Lyra watched it disappear, then turned and went inside, leaving her harvester mask behind, a relic of a past she would remember, but no longer live.